Navutu Reef. So that's going to be a topic for us. Yeah. Time.
A very good evening. Oh dear. Stand by, folk. I don't know what caused that. Oh, because I was on. It couldn't have calibrated properly this morning when I took it back from being on 20 metres. Sorry, folks. I'm streaming. We're just having to calibrate the antenna. I have a stepper antenna on the roof, and this morning I was on 20 metres, which is 14 megahertz. And I switched it back to the correct length. What you're hearing, the brrr, is the copper wire going up the middle of the vertical antenna. But it didn't seem to do it properly, because when I started talking a few minutes ago, it had a very high SWR. But just stand by, we're almost there. Yeah, I did actually try it out. I listened to that though.
Oh.
Well, apologies for the late start, everybody. 2 minutes late, unforgivable. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, Patricia and David, ZMH 286, and I just had a problem with the antenna tuning. I was on the radio this morning on a way different frequency, and I did turn it back to the correct one, but it obviously didn't calibrate properly. So anyway, a very good evening. It is the 1st of June, the official meteorological start of our winter. Not that you would know it here in New Zealand. It is absolutely gorgeous. This is meant to be winter, but we have 17 degrees, and it is 5:15 in the evening. But it's we've got this lovely big anticyclone, which you won't be appreciating out there in the islands because you're on the outside of it, and got lots of wind, whereas we have got very little wind, and what we have is from the west and bringing nice warmth from the islands. So less than 5 knots, 1026, and that's actually down quite a bit from this morning. It was 10:30 this morning, and cloudy though, a bit gloomy, 99% cloud cover. We have a report from North Minerva, 21 boats there, and welcome to Vicky, ICA Vicky on Bella Vita, but 21 boats are experiencing 15 to 20 knots of southeast wind and the 2.5 metre swell outside, 10:21 on the bar there. Not all that much better in Falanga. Good evening to Scoots if they're listening. Strong southeast there, a little bit overcast, the odd shower. There hasn't been any showers according to Pagean in Minerva, so continuing dry there. Well, we have a totally different program tonight because we have no boats on passage. The last one was Obsession, we talked to yesterday, arrived in Minerva. So we thought what we would do tonight is do things a little bit differently to just keep a bit of information flowing. David will cover what the longest term outlook is for boats wanting to move around, and we will also have quite a decent discussion on navigation in the Lau, and because of the problem that we've just had this week, really sad problem for Thursday's child, we thought it would be a good idea to go through some of the issues that you have to face when you are navigating in the Lao. Just a sort of a educational thing, discussion thing, and we'll cover that once David has finished with the weather outlook. So here he is.
Well, okay, good evening. And well, we've had a couple of requests. Those of you in Minerva, a few of you at least, are wanting to make passage up to Fiji, and we're wondering what our opinion of that was. Well, our opinion of that is not to leave before Tuesday. And the reason for that is that there is still very strong winds throughout the area from Minerva all the way up to Fiji. The winds in Fiji are going to continue through tomorrow to be 20 to 30 knots, and they'll be gusting up to 35. And for the next 24 hours, so in other words, the following day, we're also looking at southeast winds 20 to 30. Seas 4.5 meters. So for us, no, we don't want to deal with that sort of thing, and we prefer to wait until things calm down, which to our way of thinking looks like Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday look like reasonable days to be on your way up to Fiji. Then on Thursday, for those of you that are in Minerva, there could be a little bit of weather occurring, certainly some showers. One of the models has got some cyclonic disturbance just to the south of Minerva. The other doesn't. Two others don't, but they do have trough conditions. So, yeah, it's nothing serious at all, but it's certainly not going to be beautiful weather. And that beautiful weather is due to the high. The same high that we've been talking about, I think, since we started Gulf Harbor Radio this session. So that's the story there. Now, a week from Monday, that puts it about the 10th of June. Those folks that are in Vanuatu, I think, need to prepare for a cold front that's going to go through the entire chain of islands, top to bottom, and it looks like there are going to be thunderstorms and lightning and rain and squalls and sort of unpleasant weather. So the winds between Fiji and Vanuatu are going to be northeast winds, and they're feeding that cold front that's coming up through there. So in one way, it makes for good running from Fiji to Vanuatu, but then unfortunately you've got to bump into that cold front. And the high is departing by that time as well. By the 10th, it's going to be just south of French Polynesia, really, and taking its place in the Tasman is a depression, a fairly large-sized depression. Not particularly evil, but it is the sort of thing that we would expect in winter, which, yeah, it'll be officially winter by then, as Patricia said, the 1st. So, yeah, we're not looking forward to that. We've got plenty of firewood, though. I thought that we would talk a little bit about navigating, and I'm going to give it to Patricia to start this, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about some issues. So here's the chief.
Yeah, the incident this week just prompted us to get out what we had with information on the southern Lao, and we found that we had two charts. One is a very old chart, but we keep it because it's the 1970 UK 2691 Navy hydrographer chart with a lovely lot of land detail. It's the era where they put contour lines on all of the islands, which makes it really good just for looking. You can see where there's a high island versus a low island. It's black and white, but it has a lot of detail. And then there's the other chart we have is 1998. It's the New Zealand Navy. It's International 638. New Zealand 14638. It's a coloured chart, but no land detail. And David, he's the one that does all of the navigation on the good ship Chameleon. So he will explain what he found on both those charts of relevance to the incident this week. We've also got carted round a couple of the Pacific Islands pilot, and the one that's relevant to this area is volume 2. So as he's the one that is the navigator on Chameleon, he can tell you what he found on all of those sources.
All right, yeah, we will get into that in some detail, but first I wanted to say what we do when we are in a relatively new area or even an old area and making passages, overnight passages, in fact, even a passage from New Zealand to, say, Vanuatu, we always use paper charts. Now, what I'm about to say now relates to us. What you do is your business, but this is what we do. And if anybody takes anything good out of this, well, fine. So, paper charts, that's the law on our vessel, and we have them for everywhere. We've cruised for over 15 years, pretty much around the world, and we have never had a serious incident. So we actually draw a course line in pencil. In the Lao group, I think that would be an important thing to do, because the Lao is an area that's not charted very well, and actually, up until fairly recently, yachts were not encouraged to go there. In fact, they were prohibited from going there. So they've just opened up in the last number of seasons, and with that, there have been a number of incidents because of that. So anyway, what we do is when we draw a course line, and that's from start to wherever we want to go, we identify any of the possible hazards along the way on this paper chart, and we use a light colored highlighter, and we just go over the chart with this, and then we're very quickly we could see what is around us and what we have to be cognizant of. Anyway, whomever of us is on watch records in our log the position from the GPS, and we mark the chart with a little dot and a circle, and the time. We keep a log, but we also put the dot and the circle on the paper chart. And we either do it each hour if we're in a place like the Lao, or if we're crossing oceans, we'll do it maybe every 3 hours. Yes, we use chart plotters, but we only use them as a guide. And we have the guidebooks as well. But in addition to the guidebooks, which a lot of them are actually quite interesting, but I enjoy the details that are on paper charts. I could sit down and just look at them and visualize various things. It's amazing what you could learn by looking at them. And well, even the rocket guide, for those of you that are in Vanuatu or New Caledonia, we use paper charts as well as a backup to the rocket guide. In fact, when he gives waypoints to go here, there, and the other place, I will actually put that down on the paper chart and just double check. It's just the way I am. Now let's talk about Navatu Reef, Navatu. Now, there's been a lot of talk, unfortunately, about it due to the horrible incident for poor Thursday's child hitting this reef. And there's also been a lot of discussion on the internet. Some of the things on the internet, folks were actually surprised that this reef is not exactly where it's supposed to be. Well, nobody should be surprised that that's the case. Now, Patricia mentioned two charts that we use, that we have sitting right here in front of us. And again, it's UK 2691, and that's a 1970 chart, and that shows Navatu Reef, and it makes a note. It says, located 2 nautical miles southwest of the charted position. Then we've got a New Zealand Navy chart, which is International 338, or New Zealand 14638. And that's in 1998. It was updated in 1998, and that shows Navutu Reef. But it also, next to it, says PA, PA, position approximate. Now, the Fijians, well, no, before I get to that, we also have the whole series of Pacific Island pilot books. They're not cheap to buy, that's for sure. But the one that covers the area that we're talking about is volume number 2, as Patricia said. And that's page 311, 311, or 10.136. That has Navutu Reef. Navatu. I'm being corrected on my pronunciation here, which is often happens here. Anyway, it cautions that in, quote, 1974, Navatu Reef was reported to lie 2 miles southwest of its charted position. Well, here's 3 specific items that are official. So no one should be surprised that the actual reef is not where it looks like on the chart. And if you have a chart plotter that copies these paper charts, well, that's going to be wrong too. Now, the official Fiji position of that reef, and I will give it to you, is 18 degrees 41.6 minutes by 179 degrees 34.1 minutes. That's the actual position of the center of the reef. And over the past number of years, there have been quite a few boats that have gone ashore there by accident. The last one, which made some headlines, was a big fishing boat. It had 15 people on board. I think Patricia mentioned it.
No, 2020.
Yeah, that went onto that reef in 2020. And there's some good pictures of it on that reef. It's a pretty large reef. It's about 3 miles wide, and it's got a number of entrances to it. But I guess the main thing is that poor Thursday's child just had bad luck, really. They didn't realize that reef wasn't as advertised. And I plotted their position. Their AIS position when they went on was 18 degrees 41.797 minutes and 179 degrees 34.68 minutes. And that, let's see, take a look at my note here. That was, hold on.
Don't worry about it.
Well, I for some reason have mislaid my note as to the yacht. Oh yes, I found it here. The yacht actually was exactly 240 degrees from the charted position, 3 miles. The edge of the reef to poor Thursday's child was 1.5 nautical miles, and that was obviously 240 degrees. So if you're sitting in the charted position, you go 240 and go 3 miles, and that unfortunately is where the reef really is. So that, folks, is what the unfortunate thing is, and what happened. Very tragic. Unfortunately, the seas are so large in that area. We have, up to this point, we have no idea what's going on, and perhaps other people do on the net. And that's pretty much all I have. So I think I'm going to give it back to the chief, and we'll see if anybody has any comments or whatever.
Yeah, and another mention of what people use, Lynette on Whitehawk mentioned the Open CPN, which I know a lot of people use. and she had added the 2 mile problem onto the Open CPN charts. So yeah, that is the main area. It's interesting about charts. It is important to have them, but we actually got into problems ourselves with a chart in Fiji. We had left, and the mistake we made was leaving on dusk because a low was right on top of us in Viadi Bay, and we weren't in a good position, and the people that were in a good position, there wasn't room for us. So we set off to go around a bit. Thought we were pretty good actually doing the navigation in the evening. David was on the bow, I was at the helm, and we entered. I haven't got the chart in front of me to tell you exactly where it is because it's on the boat, but I did note in my brain when we went into the entrance of this bay, which was beautifully sheltered and away from the wind, that the depth wasn't as advertised on the chart, but it was still plenty of depth, so it didn't worry me. We went right deep into it and hit a reef, stopped the boat. And of course it's really, really scary where that happens, particularly as now it was dark. So David dropped the dinghy and took out an anchor and kedged us off this reef that we were on.
No.
And I turned into what the charts, and this is a British Admiralty chart, and which is the same as the sea map that we had, turned to open water, clunk, went on the reef again. Well, to cut a long story short, we stayed there because it was just no use trying to do anything. There was no sea action. We were firmly fixed, and in the morning we found out the reason. The chart, the official UK British Admiralty chart, was perfect in all respects except it was a mirror image. So everything that we thought was on the right side was on the left side, and vice versa. Don't want to put you off charts, but that is, you still have to use your eyes, and it harked back to the fact that we did leave in the dark. So bad us. Anyway, charts are one thing. The scale of charts, of course, is another, and that's why David likes to look at charts, to look at the entire passage from A to B, which of course is not what you have on your electronic charts, because you often need to zero in to see the detail, because to see where the whole passage is from A to B, often the things like little islands, little reefs don't show. So it is important to have done the first preparation by looking at the entire passage, and then you know when to zero in. The third thing that is important, of course, in going anywhere, particularly in the islands and particularly in conditions like you've got at the moment, is visibility, whether it's the water or the air. So I'm going to pass back to David because that's again his bailiwick. Just on the visibility.
Oh, well, it's really obvious. We have been in many areas in Fiji where we've had zero visibility in the water, not even talking about atmospheric conditions. And of course that creates problems. We've even had to resort to actually putting our dinghy in the water. We have a little handheld depth sounder, and we would go ahead with the dinghy, or one of us would, the other is steering the boat, and we'd work our way through sort of kind of a maybe not great area. In fact, we knew it wasn't a great area, but we wanted to get into a specific spot to drop the hook, and so that's what we had to do in that case. The other is just visibility in the air. We talk about the weather systems in particular for people that are coming into these islands or lagoons or whatever. If you can't see because it's raining like blazes, that's going to be quite dangerous. And I can tell you that even in Minerva, there are the wrecks of a number of yachts that have tried to do this very thing. Either bad visibility, some of the victims said, or they went at night and they were looking at their little chart plotters and whatnot, but they forgot about the current, and the current just sort of moved them sideways a bit and clunk, where daylight they probably would have seen what was happening. So yeah, visibility is important, not only atmospheric wise but water wise as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We that little incident that Patricia talked about, that was really the only one that we've had in 15 years. So and that it's a shame she talked about
Oh,
charts,
excuse me,
but
what about Vanuatu?
it's a shame that more people don't carry charts. In fact, we had charts coming out our
At the
ears,
zoo.
and we tried to sell them at one point in time, and we had absolutely no takers. We were even willing to give them away, and people didn't want them on board because it took up space. So, well, that's just not right. So here's the chief.
Actually, we still have them if anyone's interested. You know where we are. It's on our website, www.ghradio.co.nz. And actually, it's quite fun looking at them when we got them out to have a look at Navatu Reef. So it's, yeah, it brings back a lot of memories when you get the charts out. You see the little, and the guidebooks. You know, we have a lot of guidebooks from everywhere, and it's always interesting to see our comments about a particular anchorage, which sometimes doesn't agree with what's been said. Anyway, all right, we have not much more to say here. Good evening to everybody on streaming and listening. I suspect there's not too many listening from Minerva tonight because I think you're all having a bit of a gathering. So we'll just put it open. Is there anybody out there wanting to make contact? We had a couple of boats waiting to go away this weekend. I'm not sure whether they left today or not, but if you are there, please call in now. No, nothing heard. And it was funny, I had a good chat to Graham today, who is here. He's one of the inspectors for Cat 1, and we were talking about people with their radios and who were reluctant to use them. And he assured me a couple of boats, who I will not name, did know how to use their radios, but preferred to email in to us. You know who you are. Okay, this is Gulf Harbour Radio, and it seems that we don't have anybody that wants to use their radio tonight. So we'll wish you all a pleasant evening, despite the wind out there. It's even got up a bit in Fiji, because Y2K have emailed in to say that the wind now is up to, well, you won't think it's very strong, at 10, but it is southeast and it is higher than it was. Certainly the people that have the strong wind, that's the penalty you pay for having your temperatures a lot better than 17 degrees, which what we have. Y2K are also reporting 30 degrees outside and 31 in the water. Well, you wouldn't really jump in the water to get cooled off, would you? Anyway, good evening to you guys. This is it from us. I hope that you do discuss your navigational processes with the crew and other people. I'm sure that everyone has their own way of doing things, but it's good to learn from things that happen and try and not have them happen to you. Again, it's just really sad to hear of, well, we live from San Francisco, so we have a soft spot for Thursday's Child because they did the same thing. Cheers everybody. If you want a frequency to chat to each other, the frequency is now all yours.
Thank you, Patricia. Susan and David. Great talking. Over.
Cheers, Lisa.
Yeah, good job, Trish and David. Good evening.
Good evening. Is it still horrible weather in Port Vila?
No, lots of wind and light showers. Though all's well. Much cooler and enjoying that. Cheers.
Yeah, bye. Yeah, well, at least the rain does cool things down a bit. Cheers, everyone.